Hi everyone. We have Akshika today with us, who has received admits from almost all the colleges she has targeted, and actually scholarships also from all the colleges she has targeted. And it's truly an inspirational story because we're going to be discussing how even with the GRE score she has been able to get into all the colleges. First of all, congratulations to you, Akshika, and to the type of efforts you've given to your application. You truly have been someone who has, I haven't actually seen anyone so much dedicated in their own application. So that of course has been one primarily bigger reason for you to get admits and scholarships. So I'll just give mic to you. You can just give a brief on the type of admits you've got for your MBA program and the scholarship, if you remember.
Yeah. Thanks, Evan. I think that's really kind of you to say.
Right.
I got admits from, I think barring one, I got admits from all the colleges. I had a lot of constraints from when I was applying for my MBA program.
Right.
I had budget constraints. I wanted to look at the number of the duration of the program a lot. I was also looking at the price or the cost it would occur
Right.
to me, everything that would come out, as including the living accommodation, the living cost, everything. I was looking at everything.
Right.
And I think including and keeping in mind the overall cost, I think it was really hard for me to even narrow down the number of courses I could apply to. Keeping that in mind, the programs that I applied to included the top 20, the top 15 of the world and everything, and I was able to get admits from all of them. I was actually able to, as you just mentioned, I was able to get admits from colleges like ESCP, colleges like Warwick, Manchester, all of them, and I think each of the scholarships were above 5 to 7 lakhs. I think the highest being 15.5 lakhs.
Right.
So I was able to get scholarships of all kinds.
Right.
But as you mentioned, yes, I did have a constraint with my GRE. So I have been
Right.
working for almost 5 years. So I did not have a lot of time and I did not have a lot of investment of time in my GMAT or my GRE score. So I had to really buck up on that a bit. I gave them really quickly. So my scores were not as high.
Right.
But with whatever we wrote together with respect to my applications, my interview prep and everything, I was able to get these scholarships and everything. And I think it made me, I was really, really, really glad. So thank you to the team for that. I was really, really glad for that. And yeah, that's where I'm at now. I will be accepting one of these offers for sure. So yeah.
That's amazing. And if we go back in time, for other people to really understand, what was that something that you were really looking for in the whole application process when you finalized that you want to go for an MBA? Why were you looking for some help? Because there are some people, very few people, who do this on their own also in some cases, right? So what was your main point that you were looking for?
I think what I realized was that I did try to do a bit of it on my own,
Right.
but I realized that particularly for an MBA program, if you're a working professional, it becomes really hard for you to track the number of applications that you're writing, the deadlines for it, and each of the application in an MBA program has multiple questions. So while you can, I mean, honestly, even now, most of the content or most of the information came from me. What becomes hard is that to be able to put that in order at the right time, you do need external help for that.
Right.
Because you might get busy with work, you might get busy with other things. You do need external help to keep you on track. You do need external help to remind you that, hey, you haven't written the XYZ application yet,
Right.
or the draft for it, and we're nearing the deadline. So I think you need external help for that for sure. Even apart from the application, there's also help that's needed for putting together your documents, putting together the interview prep that you might have, because
Right.
while particularly for MBA, right? You might be a little seasoned with giving interviews. You might have given some interviews for jobs, etc. To
Right.
be able to put together a list of everything that you have done is, I mean, it's easier said than done, honestly,
Right.
because it seems like, oh, I can easily list down everything that I've done. But when you actually start picking out incidences for particular questions, it becomes very hard. So it's a lot easier when somebody who's very objectively listening to your story
Right.
gives you an opinion about, hey, this incident is what sounds very interesting. Let's talk about this. क्योंकि खुद को तो लगता है कि सारा चीज इंटरेस्टिंग है, so it's
Right.
very it's better when somebody external to your story is able to tell you that. So yeah, I think that's why I chose to get a consultant on my application who can help me with it.
Amazing. And it's also one important reason is that you get to save time by avoiding mistakes that you might do.
Oh,
Right.
100%. 100%.
Right. So you basically learn from the mistakes that other people have done, that is maybe the consultant in your case, so that you save time in that case, right? So there is also one factor, a lot of
100%.
people choose consulting companies.
Yes.
So now coming to the question, what made you really choose this? Because we are a very small company, honestly, right, as of now.
Yeah.
And some people are reluctant to go with a smaller company. So what made you really choose us? Is there anything that you liked initially or some other reason, whatever it was, you can mention?
I think my first reason was, so by the time I spoke to you, Kevin,
Yeah.
I'd already spoken to a couple of consultants, right? I think I had spoken to everyone. You were the last one on my list, right? So I had spoken to everyone on my list, and by the time I reached you, I was actually very scared that I'm really late for my applications. And this was what I started November. So I started looking for a consultant first week of November.
Right.
And I'm applying this, I'm going to do my MBA this fall.
Right.
And I was applying last November. So I already felt like I'm late. Every consultant I spoke to made me feel like I'm absolutely late. I mean, I should not be considering applying next year.
Right.
Everything from this is not going to happen to you're late, you should take a decision really quickly, your GRE score is low. I almost felt like, before I spoke to you, I almost felt like there's nothing about my application that's good.
Right.
So one of the reasons that I chose to work with you guys was because none of anybody I spoke to in your team, and most of it was you, right? None of y'all were discouraging. You were honest, but at the same time very encouraging,
Right.
very hopeful about what we can achieve together and what we cannot achieve together. And that really put me at ease. There was no rush in making a decision. There was a lot of empathy. There was a lot of understanding of how a student might feel in a situation like this.
Right.
Because I mean, there's a certain amount of investment involved in the process of going abroad.
Right.
With a consultant as well, right? There's so much money involved. Nobody wants to feel like we've made a bad decision, and so many of us do feel like that.
Right.
So there was so much encouragement, there was so much empathy involved in the process that I felt like I should definitely go with you guys. Having said that, I also had a lot of encouraging reviews through word of mouth. I had a couple of my friends who have gone through you. I did have a couple of my friends who had worked with you in the past as consultants, etc. So
Right.
I got a lot of inside information of how good you guys are. So I was able to get a lot of first-hand information in you, and that really encouraged me to
Right.
go ahead with you all. I also felt like, as you just mentioned, right, that you're a small firm right now. I feel like more than it being a disadvantage, it's an advantage, because your entire team, including you, I mean, more you than anybody else, you all go above and beyond in whatever you all do. I felt that through the process, be it creating that list of scholarships for me, including and putting those little remarks. So I do remember the Excel sheet that you created for me to apply to scholarships, and there were little remarks ahead of in front of every scholarship based on my application and the number of colleges that I was applying to, the career goals that I had, that hey, this might be an application or this might be a scholarship that you might get, you might have a preference towards, or you might get easily, and this might be something that's harder, things like that. I think that really matters in the kind of situation we're at. I also felt like in our initial calls that I was not put in a cookie cutter sort of a mold, which most of the consultants out there do.
Right.
You looked at my application as a whole, you looked at what are my positive points, what is it that I can highlight in my application, or what is it that you can help me highlight through my application. I
Right.
didn't feel like that you were putting me through a cookie cutter mold of, acha, she wants to go to the UK. Here are the things that the UK adcoms want. Let's just put her through that mold and go
Right.
ahead with it. I think that's really, really important to go through. And all of the other, I did go through a lot of consultants, had my initial chats with them. I did feel like I was being put through a mold, or I was being put through certain colleges. I was being pushed on for certain colleges. And yeah, I think that's what made me pick you guys over everybody else.
I mean, thanks a lot for trusting us. My next question was actually this only. How was your experience? You've actually mentioned most of it.
Yes.
So I'll just move to the next question. That is, you were working with someone from our team who had done their own MBA, right? So, which we basically called a mentor or a consultant. You don't have to name the person, but you can just mention how was your experience working with her, which college was she from, and how helpful was she for you.
So she was from Asade,
Yeah.
and Asade was actually one of my target colleges.
Hmm.
And as I mentioned before, it was absolutely really easy to work with her.
Right.
She was very helpful from helping me select the right colleges, which were, so you know how every consultant helps you select about 10 to 15 colleges that probably align to your goals. But if you really come down to the brass tacks, you realize that you can't actually apply to 15 colleges. You'll probably end up applying to the first 5 initially and then the next 5.
Right.
So she was able to help me identify what should be my first 5 based on my career goals and based on the kind of output that I am looking for from my MBA.
Right.
She was also really helpful, of course, with my application. As I mentioned before, there's so much that happens in your professional life. To be able to pick out instances that can actually make an impact with an adcom, somebody who's come from a good college or somebody who's come from a college that you're targeting can
Right.
really help you identify those incidents. Something that you might, as a student or as an applicant, just brush away. She was really able to help me identify what I can do with my story and with everything that I have done professionally. So it was absolutely really helpful. She was, while she is also working,
Yeah.
she was really helpful. She was always available
Right.
whenever I needed. I do remember that my first application was actually after I signed up with you guys. I think it was about 10 days away from when I signed up with you guys.
Right.
But even though it was a really short time, she was really available all through the time. She would make space in her schedule for me. If she was not available for a video call, she would make sure that she's available on a phone call or through voice notes. But I would get her point or her feedback immediately and at time before the application had to go out and everything.
Right.
So that was really, really helpful. I felt like I was looked after very, very well. So I think having a mentor from an MBA program or somebody who was right from a target college that I was looking for was really helpful.
It's amazing. And she is indeed one of the best mentors we have, so
Yes,
no doubt about
she
that.
is. She is.
So just one question that's a bit off the topic, that is about time required to create the essays. You mentioned 10 days, right? For a lot of people, I've heard them saying that 3 days, 4 days, 5 days is enough. What do you think would be the right amount of time, that because we've worked on essays in a very very quick succession of time, if you can say. Like every other college was like just after 7 days, 8 days. So we were in a hurry. But if given a chance to go back, when would you have ideally started to apply for these colleges? How much before?
So, from my own perspective, I feel like if you're somebody who's looking at a higher scholarship,
Yeah.
or somebody who's looking at who's somebody who's looking at getting an admit from bigger colleges, higher scholarships, everything, definitely earlier the better.
Right.
Because if you look at every website of every adcom that's publicly available, you don't even need a consultant for it.
Right.
It says the earlier you apply, the higher chance you have at a scholarship.
Absolutely.
So definitely earlier the better. The first deadlines are usually in September.
Right.
So earlier the better, I would say first week of August, maybe. But if you are somebody who definitely is not able to apply, say first week of August, I would say that from the deadline that you're targeting, the first application should definitely be about 20 days before. That's the latest, I would imagine. Because why I say 20 days is because the first application always takes more time, and then every following application is quite fast. So I think that's the mistake that I made when I signed up with you guys. I was just 10 days away from my first application deadline, and that I think we had to hurry it up quite a bit. So, but we were still able to touch wood, achieve it. Everything thereon and everything after that is quite fast, because you have understood the story that you want to talk about. You understood the target of the succession of your career that you want to talk about, the incidences that you want to talk about. So every college thereafter is a lot easier to apply to, or you're able to mold your story for that college. But the first college is so essential that you need to spend a lot of time. There's also a lot of back and forth in the first college, and then every college thereafter is a lot easier. So I would suggest the earlier the better. In fact, I would suggest that if you're still in the process of giving your GRE or your GMAT, it might be better to have a conversation with the consultant of your choice, and in my case, you guys, while you're in the process of giving your GRE. So say you're giving your GRE first week of August, it might be interesting to have a chat with your consultant around that time as well, so that you're almost all ready. As soon as you get your score, you can go ahead and talk to your consultants and get on with the process. And honestly, in my case, after my entire situation, I've realized that your application holds a lot more value than your GRE score. Your interviews hold a lot more value than your GRE score. I mean, I came to you at a point saying, "Mujhe lagta hai mera kuch bhi nahi hoga. I will not end up getting any college," and I ended up getting scholarships from every college I applied to. So I do feel like what you are able to talk about in your professional life makes a lot more difference. Definitely, you do need a GRE score. I won't say that GRE scores make no difference. They do make a lot of difference, but it's of a lot more importance if you're able to apply earlier with a decent GRE score and work with your consultant to work on your story. So yes, I would say apply as early as possible.
Makes sense, right? So profile and the story weighs a bit more than your scores, right?
100%. That's what I feel. At least with myself, I would have landed up nowhere if it was just the GRE. So.
Right. Amazing. And just one last thing about us. I mean, you had someone from our content team also, who created, I mean, absolutely beautiful essays. I mean, of course, you've been someone who was very good at writing essays yourself. The content was really nice. What sort of help you got from the content team that we had, and whatever your feedbacks were on that, any comments on that you can share with other people listening to this?
So I think, as I had mentioned before, what helps having a content team is that if you're a working professional, being able to edit essays exactly as your mentor might drop feedbacks with, or things like that, is really hard. You can't keep up with the deadlines. They're all very close by to each other. So what happens is having a content team really helps. If you're able to put together an essay that makes sense, that is a true replication of what your story is, the content team is able to exactly make it flow in a story. So they are able to edit it in a manner that's easier to read, that's easier to comprehend, and that's actually impactful.
Right.
I think that's where for me that content team really helped. Um, Apart from that, I do feel like the content team was really good with feedback. So they were very malleable. I do remember that my first application, I wanted the stories to look a certain way, whereas in a certain I think with my last application, I wanted the stories to look a lot more flowery than they were. I wanted them to flow in a certain way. In the first stories, I wanted them to be simpler, and in the last set of applications, I wanted them to be slightly more impactful, slightly more number oriented, solution oriented.
Right.
I think the content team was able to adapt to whatever I needed for that application. And that's where I felt like having a team to work with really helped for me. They
Right.
were able to understand what I am looking at with this application or what I am looking at with this college, and they were able to edit whatever I wrote for them in that manner. They made sure that they kept the essence of everything I wrote
Right.
in whatever manner I had, and they just made it easier to read. But I could also sense, while I didn't need it, but I could also sense that if there are students out there who need a complete rehaul of their application, or completely, say they just wrote points and they need a story to be written, the content team was more than capable to be able to do
Right.
that.
Right.
So I could see that very clearly, that they did have the ability to be able to do that. And while this sounds like a really small aspect of the application initially, you do realize that after a while it becomes so tiring to continuously write the same story again and again,
Right.
and to be able to read the same story again and again, that the difference between your first application and your last application is actually a good content writer,
Right.
because you're writing the same story again and again, and it probably becomes less impactful as you write it, or more impactful as you write it. To be able to build consistency, a good content writer actually makes sure that you're able to portray it to the truest essence that you have, and the true way that you want to portray it. So I was really grateful. I mean, I did tell you that in our chats before, that
Right.
it was really nice to be having to have worked with
Amazing.
a couple of
I mean, again, this is given the fact that Akshika was an extremely creative person, right? Her essays were already really nice. But again, it's not the same with everyone, right? Not everybody is really great at, having a story. A lot of people don't even have their own stories. And that's where, people like these can help you a lot in the content part. One, again, similar question that I want to ask. I mean, because you come from a background where you have a lot of people abroad already, you have friends studying abroad in top colleges, and so I just want to understand from the perspective, is there something, last point again about us, is there something you feel that we offered as a consultant that you might have heard from other people who have taken some external help, or any feedbacks you've gotten, or any forums you might have looked at that we offered and other people usually don't offer, right? If you feel.
I felt like, I mean, honestly, it's not something that you can say out loud, but it's more of the experience that I had.
Right.
So probably in the written format that you probably have on your website, or everything that students ask for, everything exists. So everybody has at par. There's a content writer, there is a customized MBA option or a list, and all of those exist.
Right.
But when I experienced the service that I did feel like something that I did mention, that you guys go above and beyond in what the student needs.
Right.
Sometimes there are needs that the student doesn't anticipate, and during the process they realize that, oh, I forgot that this also exists.
Right.
I didn't at any point feel like I had to run behind the consultant, or I had to run behind you to get answers. I got my answers, I got replies, if my consultant was busy or my mentor was busy, you were more than happy to be able to be the bridge person between that. In fact, to be honest, my mentor was never busy, she was always available.
Right.
But I have heard stories of other people going through other consultants where mentors have been busy and you just don't get a hang of it. But I have seen that between you and the mentor, I was always looked after, I was always responded to, I was always reassured. And it's a really daunting process applying
Hmm.
to 5 or 6 colleges wherein you're just sitting and waiting for answers, sitting for interviews, waiting. It's a really daunting process with multiple applications happening. I think through all of that process, it was the experience that I had of being looked after,
Right.
of being responded to, of being made sure that if there is a unanticipated need, you made sure that I was taken care of. So my scholarship application, while I didn't end up applying to a lot of those scholarships,
Right.
uh, because I mean I didn't end up needing it to, you made sure that I had that list ready with me. There were some colleges that sent across additional essays for scholarships. There was a presentation that we ended up
Right.
helping working on together, right? All of those things were unanticipated. We didn't expect that those will happen, but you made sure that I was looked after through that. I felt like that was something that I would have not expected with other consultants to happen.
Right.
Uh, Truly, because the vibes that I got with them, I know that it sounds a little philosophical, but when you're churning out almost 4 lakh, 3 lakh students a cycle, I don't expect them to give me that personal attention.
Hmm.
And here I did feel like you were talking to me and not to another MBA student of that cycle.
Hmm.
I
Makes
think
sense.
that's something that I did feel was very different. That's actually a reason why I ended up recommending a lot of my friends in my batch who wanted to work with a consultant for the MBA applications as well.
That's really nice to hear. On a similar note, because we know we are a growing company, and we are, I would say, nowhere near where we want to be in terms of how good we want to be. I want to again understand if you have any comments for us, if you want to give any suggestions for us in terms of improvement of the process as a constructive feedback. I would love to hear and incorporate that from here on.
Yes, I think we had a chat about this. So, um, in terms of the interview preps that we did, right?
Yeah.
And this is something that most companies do, and the same thing that you all were doing, that I was prepping with my own mentor for it. I did feel like if we could just cross the mentors a bit, and I was working with somebody who is completely unknown for my interview preps per se,
Yeah.
it would actually give me the feeling of a mock interview, because it's really difficult to be in a room with somebody who doesn't know your story and to be able to sell that,
Hmm.
versus working with somebody who does have a little bit context. And while they can give you really good feedback, so my mentor gave me really good feedback, but I do know that a lot of the answers I might have given to her would have worked with her because she had context of everything that we worked on. So the second you cross, or you work with other mentors, or you work with somebody who you don't really know, that would really help. And we did have a detailed chat about that, so I do know that you will end up
Right.
incorporating it. And yeah.
Absolutely. So, I mean, in short, we will be sort of incorporating this change, and we will be, having mock interviews that we usually offer with different mentors. So that, because I know that when you work with someone for like 2-3 months, right, there is a relationship that it's created, and it's not completely, formal and the way you would want it to be while practicing for interviews. And I understand that. Those are really, really, great feedback that I've got, and I know that other companies don't do this, and I think this would help students a lot in their interview preparation. In general, last question again. In general, what feedback or what suggestion would you give to students who are maybe looking for consultants, who were maybe looking to work with us or work in general, working with someone else watching this video? What would you give to them that you've seen other people not doing, maybe, or in general also?
I think those students, I would say that don't don't really leave everything up to the consultant.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, nobody knows your story better than you do. So if you're not involved in your story, the way it's being written, or you're not happy with it, even if it's 1% of unhappiness, voice it. Make sure that that story or the application that you're sending out sounds like you.
Right.
It sounds like your story. It sounds like every word of it, even if it's a conjunction, something as small as an and everything has to sound like you. And you have to take that interest, because the second you start taking an interest in the application, be it any consultant, they will respond in the same way as well. The application together will come across as you as well.
Right.
Secondly, I do feel like everything from reaching out to adcoms, reaching out to scholarship teams, everything has to be your consultant can only give you a suggestion. It has to be done by you.
Right.
So if you're not taking an interest in your own story and your own application, and you're not involved in your own application, um, don't expect the consultant to deliver as much as they can.
Right.
I think everything from taking accountability of the application to pushing across to adcoms has to be done by you. Your consultant can only give you suggestions. So that's really, really important. You can't just leave it up to the consultant कि बस एक consultant ले लिया है और वो ही सब कुछ लिख देगा.
Right.
It's not going to give you the best results. It might give you some results,
Right.
but not the best ones. I do feel like between the way you and I work together and the team and I work together, I was able to get whatever I could get because I was as involved as you said. And we did have so many discussions through which we were able to find the best way to portray my story. So I think that would be my suggestion. That be involved in your own story. Don't make it seem like it's somebody else's problem once
Right.
that you've hired a consultant.
Right.
And secondly, if you're somebody looking for scholarships, please apply as early as you can. It'll
Right.
really, really benefit you.
Absolutely. For anyone now aiming for 2026 intake, round ones are something you should be eyeing at. And everything that Akshika has mentioned about you being involved is actually on point. It's your application. Eventually, you cannot really substitute your hard work, right? You can take help. You can have someone behind you. You can have someone with you. But the main thing is you should be involved, right? And that's when the results come. Thanks a lot, Akshika, for taking out time. It was a bit longer than we expected it to be. I'm really sorry for the extra questions, but I really appreciate you taking out time for this. I hope you have a great time at your dream college that you're going to. And yeah, that's it. Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Thank you so much.
Bye.